back to Live at the Forum. I'm Lisa Boyd. I'm Regional Vice President for Equus Workforce Solutions, and I'm here today with Danielle Frazier, President and CEO for Charlotte Works. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I didn't see you here last year, so
I did not make it last year.
Took the year off and came back.
But happy to be back this year.
Awesome. It's great to see you. Well, there's still a lot of buzz about your session yesterday on DEI, taking it from conversation to action. So wanted to ask you a few more questions and follow up to that, if I could. You talked about the community partners that you've embedded staff in and being very, I guess, intentional about that. You talked about the Sheriff's Office, the county's Community Resource Center, the Housing Authority. What led you to choose those partners, and what's been the results?
Yeah, happy to share more about that. If I share a little bit more about the why we did it, it will help to lead toward the why, the partners.
Okay.
Something that Charlotte is not all too happy to always tell this story about, but it is our reality and something that we've done some great work around in addressing. And that's a report that came out back in 2013. It was a Harvard study. Raj Chetty, who was an economics professor at Harvard, co-authored a study that measured intergenerational mobility within our cities and counties across our country. And so in that study, Charlotte ranked 50 out of 50 against other large cities, and our county ranked 99 out of 100, against other counties across our country for economic mobility. So meaning that if you were born into a family that was in the lowest income quintile, that there was only a 4.4% chance that you would increase and rise to the top income quintile by the time you were an adult. And so, of course, this was a rally cry for our community, right, to address this issue. There was a local group that was formed called the Opportunity Task Force. They did 18 months of research and really digging deeper into more data to understand how did this happen in our community. And so there was a report that they released that had a lot of great insight as to what the determinants were around this intergenerational poverty issue that we had in our community. So our response to that report, Charlotte Works, was to, and through our NC Works Career Centers, was to really look at where are there areas in our community where there is high unemployment, high poverty rates, and where there's really deserts, right? These food deserts, these job deserts, these really opportunity deserts. And we wanted to make sure that we got our services out into those communities. We realized we have 2 career centers in our county, and that everyone may not be able to make it to our career centers and access our services, whether it's transportation or other challenges. And so we looked at partners in these very key areas, zip codes, again, that had those high rates. And we said, we're going to partner with these organizations. And hence why we chose, we're very intentional about Goodwill Industries. We were intentional about the detention centers. And so really working with individuals that really need the opportunity before they're returning to their communities of, job readiness skills, and working with them to try to help them increase with their career development, attainment, and credential attainment, preparing them to really be one step ahead as they enter our community, as well as another organization, Renaissance West, which is a nonprofit organization that really helps communities around, again, jobs and healthcare and others. And so we placed an outreach career advisor with that organization as well. So it was really important for us to get into these communities. We know, and one, provide access to our services, and to really be specific and intentional about the segments of our population that we know have not really had the most opportunity and access to it. And so the result of that has been amazing. We also have an outreach career advisor at our Community Resource Center, our county's center, where they have kind of this one-stop shop of their public services. And so we have an individual there that's helping people with immediate jobs, so rapid employment, those that need a job now. I don't have the data in front of me, but I think that to date, we've probably impacted about 1,000 people within the few years that he's been there. He's like the superstar in that area. So, and then with our detention center, like we've been able to partner with businesses to actually have job fairs. And so while individuals are still incarcerated, and so many people that are entering the community within 4 months, they're actually entering the community with employment. And so it's been amazing. And so those are the results, right? It's being able to create that access, help people with jobs and with the resources that they need, but then also it strengthens relationships with Goodwill, with our county, and with others. And I see this doing nothing but just expanding.
Right. Well, one of the things I picked up on yesterday during your presentation is that this was all happening even pre-pandemic. So I think there's a lot of board areas that are since the pandemic have felt like we need to get out in the community, access people where they are. But you were really kind of a trailblazer in that, even doing that, a few years prior to.
Well, we were, and we try to find the silver lining in everything, right?
Yeah.
We certainly don't want to be 50 out of 50 for economic mobility. And again, I'm so proud of the work that our community has done to address it, from our business community to our private sector, public sector, all the community partners that have come together to really move the needle and make Charlotte-Mecklenburg a better place for all residents in our community. And so we find that silver lining, but we had to do what we had to do. And that's what we try to continue to be, is just nimble and as flexible as possible. When we see a need, we try to meet the need.
Yeah, that's awesome. So a little bit more about the staff who work at those locations. You talked about the gentleman that's at the county's Community Resource Center, but I know you also talked about, you gave us this little nugget around, you have to really choose carefully who those people are, lived experiences. What I took away from yesterday was that they're not your typical WIOA case managers, and that, talk about how you kind of tailor what they do at those partner organizations, because I think that's pretty unique too.
Yeah, well, let me start off by saying that if anyone is in this line of work, right, it's because there's a greater purpose, and I think a higher calling, right? Yeah. Everyone comes to this industry in workforce development through a different path and through their experience. But I think if you ask everyone, it boils down to, I want to help people.
Right.
And so with these particular partnerships, it was important to us to match the needs of the clients, and making sure that we had individuals and career advisors that were in these organizations. We talked with organizations and said, what's the profile of a career advisor, and what's really needed? Help us to understand your clients and who you're serving and what their needs are as they're coming into these organizations, to their organization. And so we wanted to make sure that we put the right people in place. I think first and foremost, it's making sure that our folks are empathetic, right? They're compassionate, they're understanding. And I think even some to have the same walk of life, right? And experiences, to be a little bit more proximate to some of the issues and challenges that our job seekers are facing, but then also their own experiences, so that they can kind of help. I think that's an additional kind of benefit, to be able to connect and to relate to the job seekers that we're serving and the people that they're trying to help, advance in their education and their careers. And so it was really, really important. For example, our outreach advisor at the detention center, right? Working with individuals that are incarcerated. I mean, there has to be a certain temperament, right? And a certain
special
connection.
Training and all of that.
Absolutely, right? And so thank you for that segue, right? Professional development. And so making sure that we support our career advisors with the professional development they need around mental illness or substance abuse, or with people experiencing homelessness, right? So making sure that they're equipped with the tools that they need, but they also kind of have that innate, organic, I think, experience and connection to the job seekers. So that's really important.
Right. That's great. So, since the pandemic, we've seen, just the needs of employers for urgent, quick, I need workers in a hurry, right? And, for some months, there's been, I think, for some groups, a slow return back to the workforce. We talk about women and the issues with childcare. I think people, we've seen people make different decisions about work and what they want to do for work, or, what can they live without, and, maybe think differently about work all the way around. And so I think that's, created an opportunity for some employers to really tap into some untapped talent that maybe they wouldn't have looked at before. Do you think, part of one of the responsibilities of workforce boards in this environment is to really bring that untapped talent forward, I guess, and market individuals that, they maybe hadn't thought about hiring before?
Well, so to start off, absolutely. And this is something that we've been doing now for a few years with our current strategic plan. One of the things, again, that we wanted to make sure we did on the heels of that local study was create access and inclusion for all people in our community. And so making sure that we targeted very specific segments of our population that we knew were a part of this untapped talent. We call it hidden talent now, right? That didn't rise to the top with our employers before.
Right.
And so I think we were very intentional about understanding those persona profiles, understanding their challenges, understanding their needs, so that we had the resources that we needed to be able to help support them the best. But then also taking that story and sharing that with businesses and educating them on, hey, you've got a viable talent pool here in all of these different, these different people, right? They are coming with skills, they're coming with abilities that can really benefit your organization. And this was pre-COVID, right? And so now COVID, and fast forward, well, we're still in COVID, right? But I think employers have now understood the value, right? Of, with the need of how many jobs we have to job seekers. I think that they're looking now at those individuals that, are individuals with disabilities and opening their pools and understanding of, or people that are returning citizens, right? And need a second chance, or veterans, or the older worker, right? And so it's our job to really educate businesses on all of the opportunities of talent that you have in the community, but then also to share how this helps to support their bottom line, right? And having a more diverse workforce and experiences and perspectives and views, it helps to really further, I think, the mission and vision of the organization and really educating them on that. And I think employers have been extremely embracing of that. We've asked them, what are your hiring practices? What are your retention and attraction practices? And I think you're going to see that a lot more businesses are going to really take a hardcore look at those things. Some have already done a lot of that, but really looking at some different talent pools that they never did before because they didn't really have to. But again, silver lining and everything, right? So this pandemic has really opened up opportunity, I think, to a whole lot of other people that they just didn't rise to the top before.
Yeah. Well, I love the work that you've done with Deloitte on the personas and that whole, you have to serve different people differently. And there are different doses of service and all of those things. What's next in terms of your work with Deloitte and how Charlotte Works is moving forward?
Yeah, good question. So what's next is one of the things that we realized was a huge barrier for our job seekers was really access and understanding where they can access our services. Do I go to a Goodwill first? Do I go to an NC Works Career Center, right? It's how do we create this no wrong door approach, or maybe it's the first best door approach. So that job seekers know how to navigate our services, right? And so us as partners, our Goodwills, our career centers, our urban leagues, those that are providing the workforce development services in our community, how are we working together better to help our job seekers navigate? How are we handing off our job seekers to each of our organizations and making sure they don't fall through the cracks and making sure they're getting the support and the services they need? Because we know that it takes a village, right? It takes all of us. Not all of us, one organization can provide all of the support to our job seekers and our businesses for that matter. And so really what's next is a collective impact approach as how do we better serve our job seekers and our businesses from a collective impact standpoint and more systemically. So that's our next steps and what's ahead for us to really create a better experience for our job seekers and our businesses.
Excellent. Very exciting stuff.
It's very exciting. Hard work, but it's very exciting and very rewarding for us as a system.
Well, I want to say in closing, we are so thrilled that we get to be your partner in this in Charlotte. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time today. Really appreciate you spending some time chatting with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.